Welcome to Dog Day Afternoon. I'm Gilles Gallant with BetsTV and FTNBets. You can follow me on Twitter at GDawg5000. It's the NFL betting show. We're going to be talking some NFL, some betting odds, some betting advice, give a few picks along the way. Main thing I love to reiterate in the intro here, we do not take ourselves or these things too seriously. Again, it's a sports betting show. It's okay to have differing ideas and differing opinions. Let's just keep it kosher. Let's keep it going here. And every week I'm going to cover the latest odds in the NFL, give a platform to people that I'm a huge fan of, somebody that I've been following a long time, and get a lot of sports betting information, nuggets, and knowledge from. And that's Julian Edlow. He's a content specialist and betting analyst for DraftKings, co-host of a very popular podcast, the Unreasonable Odds podcast on the DraftKings network. Julian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on the show. Likewise, long-time fan of yourself, and appreciate your content. And yeah, glad that we can make this happen.
Just a lovely reciprocation of two dudes just saying we admire each other, So, and I think that's really something that should be admired. Well, Julian, this wouldn't be a sports show or even a sports betting show if we didn't start off with a few hot takes. Obviously, I think it's almost in my nature to have a hot take, but also I feel like it's written in my contract somewhere. I have to probably throw out a couple zigzagging type of takes here when we talk about the NFL. And I'm going to start it off with a segment I call Apparently. So, Julian, apparently, Jonathan Taylor is going to win the NFL MVP. I mean, at this rate, since week 4, Jonathan Taylor has scored 16 touchdowns, rushed for 1,034 yards. He's got a couple juicy matchups coming up. His odds are now down to 14-1 to win the NFL MVP. Julian, is it apparent as to you as it is to me that Jonathan Taylor has a serious case to win MVP this year?
It is not quite as apparent to me as it is to you. I still think it's going to wind up going to a quarterback. Tom Brady's obviously still the favorite, but you're onto something in terms of the odds. Like Jonathan Taylor, I'm looking right now on DK Sportsbook, plus 1,800. You've got a guy like Cooper Kupp. Now, the Rams are really falling off, and I think Jonathan Taylor is a much better case than Cooper Kupp at plus 3,500. But, like, just taking two skill position guys that have had really good seasons, potentially record-breaking seasons, in a year where the quarterbacks are down. Nobody has gone out and seized the MVP yet. Kyler Murray was kind of there. Then he missed the games with injury. Josh Allen is still, the second favorite behind Brady, but doesn't deserve to be anywhere in the neighborhood. Aaron Rodgers, probably too much of a down year for Mahomes. So, like, it's almost like the Heisman conversation we're having where, like, it's kind of lazy to give it to a guy like Bryce Young at Alabama, but you got to find somebody else deserving. So I don't hate, on books, maybe like DraftKings, where you can hit a cash out button.
Yeah.
If you want to bet Taylor and think he's going to go up to like plus 600, plus 500, and maybe cash it out because in the end they're going to say, let's give it to Brady. I don't hate the idea of trying to profit on it somehow. I just don't think in the end Jonathan Taylor is going to find the finish line there as the actual MVP.
For sure. And I think one of the things, too, that's difficult with betting on an MVP candidate that's a running back is just the history. Like, we haven't seen one win since 2006 when it was Adrian Peterson. He rushed for over 2,000 yards coming off a torn ACL. The narrative was all there, and the Vikings, had a winning record, made the playoffs. Even like Derrick Henry last year had 2,000 rushing yards, wasn't even a top 3 candidate for MVP. So, again, just the running backs, just the handicap is there where they have to overcome so much or, set a metric like rushing touchdowns in a year or rushing yards in a year that it's difficult to necessarily bring them on full steam. I will say the only thing before we move. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Quick, like where I look there, and it's kind of square because he's the favorite, but like generally when a running back like this has a year like this, like Henry, the quarterback of the best team wins the MVP, and then Jonathan Taylor gets the Offensive Player of the Year award, which he's plus 225 for. He's a favorite.
Not bad.
If you like underdogs, plus 225, not bad at all.
Absolutely. And I think there's some other candidates too, like another guy like Joe Mixon, for example, I think would be a great candidate. Just if you look at his track record, scoring in pretty much every game this year except one. So yeah, I think Jonathan Taylor, I think it's not bad. I just think the odds are, I think as well, I think we're also buying very low at this point. Like you could have got him a couple weeks ago at like 100-1 at this stage. So before that big 4 touchdown game. All right, now, Julian, next topic here. Apparently, a Patriots-Bucs Super Bowl is happening. it's going to be poetic justice this year. The Pats are this close to getting the 1 seed. The Bucs are pretty much a stone throw away from getting it. I'm not convinced that Arizona is going to hold on to have that 1 seed. Just as a heads up as well, if you wanted to do an AFC NFC conference odds parlay, like I've seen that the odds as high as plus 1,900 for them to be in the Super Bowl. So, Julian, is it a paradox to you as it is to me that we're looking at a very likely matchup in the Super Bowl of Patriots Buccaneers?
Very likely on 19-1, I guess, is a little strong if I'm going to fight you here. But I don't think many people, other than, if you're a Ravens and a Bills fan or a Packers and a Cardinals fan that wants to see your team get in there, I don't think there's many, casual NFL fans that would have a problem saying, if my team isn't in it, this is a matchup I would like to see. Mm-hmm. And it's out in LA, in Hollywood. Seems like the perfect place for that Super Bowl. The Bucs haven't been great, but the NFC, like some of these teams have let down. I think the Packers, what they've shown me, that they're going to have a real shot to get there. And the AFC has just been so crazy. Like, who would have thought when this Patriots team was just awful at 2-4? Would even have a shot. I do think teams like the Bills and Chiefs can improve down the home stretch. Hopefully the Patriots aren't peaking too early with this 6-0 run, 6-0 ATS run as well. But it is as realistic a chance as any matchup on the board, really, that we could get this Brady Belichick Super Bowl. I'm a Pats fan, obviously. I'm here in Boston, based on DraftKings HQ, so I am all for it 100%. Let's see it. Let's have it.
Yeah, and I think it's really just because of the defenses. I think obviously the Patriots defense, they lead the league in points allowed per game, turnovers, yardage, from a rushing yard standpoint, they're right up there in top 3, top 5 as well. And the Bucs, even though they're on the surface, their pass defense has been gouged before in games. They're top 3 in interceptions, top 3 in sacks. So it's not like their defense is just getting completely skewed every week. And I think
when Vega's on the field, they're different.
And that's what I was kind of most impressed with as well, going back to the Taylor conversation, is that I was more impressed that Taylor could even get a touchdown in that game, just like with how stout that defensive line is. And I thought that actually added to his MVP case to only rush 15 times, 86 yards and a touchdown against that defense, which has allowed less than 5 all year. Again, just very impressive stuff. Now, Julian, moving on to the next one. This is a part 2 of the middle segment of apparently. We're going to do another Patriots angle here. And it's apparently Bills Patriots Monday Night Football is going to decide the AFC, because I'm looking at the schedules for both teams. And right now I'm looking at it, and this game in Buffalo is going to decide it, because the Pats are plus 110 right now to win the AFC East. The Bills are sitting around minus 150. I mean, the odds skewed depending on the sports book, but that's pretty much what it is. Bills are still favored to win that division. And I think whoever wins that division is going to end up getting the 1 seed, likely going to be able to have a fast track to the Super Bowl. Julian, is it a paradox to you as it is to me that this Monday Night Football game coming up here, the stakes are going to decide the AFC playoff picture?
I'll fight you here. It's a huge game in the division for sure, but they also still play again. So, like, who's to say, why is this game more important than the next one? You can make the argument that the latter meeting is, however, the latest meeting in the season between teams is going to be the most important. So there's still time to, kind of figure that out. And the way that, whoever wins this game is definitely going to have a leg up for sure. You can't fight with that, but they're going to have a chance to redeem themselves in the rematch. And then you got a team like the Ravens that won gross to hang on to the 1 seed in the AFC on Sunday Night Football. The Chiefs seem like they might be back, and now they're coming out of the bye. We'll see what kind of momentum they can get. How many changes have we seen in the first 2/3 of the season in the AFC where, these teams are good? We were at the point where, all right, maybe we just have to put our hands up in the air, and the Tennessee Titans are the best team in the division. Now they've lost a couple of games in a row, and people are talking about, are the Colts going to catch them? Getting hot with Jonathan Taylor. I think there's still time in this season. We've seen so many just quick reverses in the standings and in terms of our perceptions. I still think there's time here for a big change in the AFC. That said, the Patriots and Bills are probably going to be 2 teams that not many people want to see in the first round in the AFC.
I agree, but I personally think just the reason being why this game will decide it more so than the Week 17 matchup is just because of the other games. Looking at it, looking at the Bills schedule and the Patriots schedule remaining. I mean,
Whoever wins
that's
it can
assumed.
then go
Yeah.
build upon their lead a little bit going up to the rematch.
That's all I'm getting at is that where Week 17, depending on other factors, it might be or Week 18 rather, it might be meaningless, right? Like that's kind of where I'm getting at is that it might come down to where that game might not even matter at that point, but we'll see. Again, I just kind of think that looking at the Baltimore schedule and the Tennessee schedule as well, some of the teams that they have to play, they're not going to finish undefeated as well. So I just think that the Patriots, based on the way that they've been playing, the defense and run game, they're back. Congratulations. You had 1 year hiatus and then you're right back in the thick of things. So good for you. All right. Now we're going to move on to some futures odds here. And one of the teams that I found in the AFC, Julian, that has been kind of making a little bit of noise, but just kind of more under the radar because, again, we focus on, the Bills and the Patriots and the Ravens. And that first team is the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals, they take one step back, but then they almost take two steps forward. They're kind of right there, right behind the Ravens now in the AFC North. Super Bowl odds at 40-1. Joe Mixon, we were talking about earlier, Offensive Player of the Year, all the way down to 50-1. Bengals to win the AFC North at plus 230, and the Bengals to win the AFC at 16-1. Julian, if you had to put a unit of your hard-earned cash, which one of these would you feel comfortable the most betting on for Bengals futures?
So I can't get down with them winning the AFC or winning the Super Bowl. I just think that's too big of a step for me.
Sure.
And when it comes to Offensive Player of the Year, like the number on Mixon is very attractive. But again, I like to bet the numbers and a little bit of gut feel to it. Like, I don't think anybody's if Jonathan Taylor or Cooper Kupp were to get hurt, like I think the other one would just win the Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Which generally goes to the skill position guy that isn't worthy of the MVP when it goes to the quarterback. So I guess by default that puts me on the division, which is by far the most realistic, obviously, given the number. But that's fine. You're still getting whatever that was, plus 230 on the division. Right. That's fine. Yep. Baltimore and Cleveland looked as bad as you can look in a primetime game. Somebody had to win it. Baltimore won it. Pittsburgh's not for real.
Done.
They're out. So can the Bengals be better than Baltimore and Cleveland the rest of the way? And they already have the leg up on Cleveland. So it's really against Baltimore. And anything can happen. We've seen Lamar Jackson already get COVID like twice, right? He's a mobile quarterback. We've seen him get hurt. I would say the door is open for the Bengals to finish this out. You look at the schedule, 3-point home favorites against the Chargers. They got another home game. San Francisco is getting a little bit hot at Denver. But then the big one, they host the Ravens the day after Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
That's the game they need if they're going to do this. They do still have the Chiefs on the schedule, which is tough, working against them and then finish with the Browns. It's plausible.
I think really what you're betting on with the Mixon Offensive Player of the Year odds is he doesn't have that 4-touchdown, 5-touchdown game, the one that's going to separate him from the rest of the group, like a Taylor does. Even Kupp, for the most part, there's a few games there at the beginning of the season where it was like 2 touchdowns, 150 yards, like 2 games straight. Then anyway, the point is, I think that's what really would need to happen in order for Mixon to be considered a serious candidate for Offensive Player of the Year. That could happen, but that's what you're betting on.
The Chargers have the worst run defense in terms of yards allowed, like by a wide margin. They're home favorites this week. Like this could be your game.
Yeah, and it's the Lions and Jets that you always think of for running, but the Chargers are right there when you look at it for defensive metrics across the board for running. Yeah, I'm with you on the Super Bowl and AFC. It feels like a little too much too soon. I just think that they can be exposed in certain matchups, so I don't like their chances to win 4 straight games in the playoffs. So I'm right there with you at AFC North. I feel like it is doable, even though their schedule is starting to get a little tougher as we end the year. But I just wanted people to kind of think about Mixon more so from that Offensive Player of the Year standpoint of that there is a potential, but what really you're banking on is that blowout explosive game. And I'm not really sure that they're going to do that because they're one of the top 10 teams in passing attempts in the league. Like with all those passing options, they're going to pass the ball probably more than they will run comparatively to some other teams. All right, so that is the Bengals. We're going to move on to another team that the Bengals do have on their schedule. Team had a pretty good win this past week, and the San Francisco 49ers. One of these teams that was, pretty much hyped up to come out of the NFC at the start of the year. And then obviously we saw some progression throughout the season to win the Super Bowl, sitting at 40-1, winning the NFC at 20-1. NFC West, that is the correct odd. It is 25-1, just in case people were wondering. And to make the playoffs, the one that I threw in because I thought this one out of the four probably had the most realistic shot. And that's at plus 110. Julian, are you with me? Do you think the playoffs prop out of these four is probably the best one to do for a San Francisco 49ers future? Or does one of the other three tickle your fancy?
Yeah, I mean, when you see that they have shorter odds to go to the Super Bowl than win their division, that they're probably in a hole that they can't quite dig out of. And that's got to be the case. Like, you love contrarian plus money or whatever, but the plus 2,500 to win the division, they could lose this weekend, and that, you can light that ticket on fire almost already. So that said, I do like them as 3-point road favorites against the Seahawks. Seahawks on a short week looked awful in Washington. Russell Wilson doesn't look like himself. So, like, if you want to play for Sunday, I'm leaning 49ers pretty strong on Sunday, as long as you can get that at a field goal or less. So they get a win there. Then they have the big game in Cincy, which we'll see. But follow that up, hosting the Falcons. That should be a win. They host the Texans. That should be a win. The road game at Tennessee, we'll see what Tennessee is at that point, and then probably a big one to end at the Rams in division to wrap up the season. There's a couple of gimmies on there, and I like them this weekend. They've been getting hot. I don't think any of the, if they do get in, I don't think it's worth having any real money on them to win the division or win the Super Bowl, because in the end, I think the Bucs or the Packers, or even if the Rams get it together, I just think there's more talented teams that'll get through. And the 49ers can run into the wrong matchup and be exposed pretty easily. But they can definitely make the playoffs. So if you're giving me anything better than plus money, that's got to be the one that interests me, especially with some of these teams. Like, Seattle's been in it 8 of the last 9 years or whatever. They're firmly out. Minnesota's trying to put it together, but like Kirk Cousins can't even line up under the right spot to snap the ball. So, like, one of these wild card spots are going to be open, and San Francisco is very plausible to land in one of them, and you're getting plus money.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting too, like if the playoffs were to start today, like San Francisco's in the playoffs, same with the Vikings as well. So I think that's kind of what they're looking at. Is like, okay, remaining schedule, they should still win enough to get in, but obviously to win the division just is foolish at this stage. I would be kind of interested in the NFC bet at 20-1. I know that sounds ridiculous, and I know that they're probably going to be underdogs in every game that they would play. Maybe not so much, maybe the wild card game if they got like I don't know, like the Cowboys or something, like, and Dak is hurt, just some random occurrence. But usually in the other scenarios, 49ers would be underdogs pretty much in every spot on the way to the Super Bowl. So you probably have better odds just to bet them as a money line dog and just roll up each game in comparison to taking the 20-1. Before we move on to the next team, I just wanted to ask you, because I was going to talk about 49ers Seahawks. Does the Deebo Samuel injury deter you, make you think otherwise at all? Does that bother you at all when it comes to wanting to play the 49ers to cover 3 against the Seahawks?
Yeah, you don't love that. It's not ideal. He's been so great recently. And, you watch some of their games, you see him coming out of the backfield, playing a big role out of the backfield as well. So he's a pretty important piece that I would prefer to have out there. That said, I don't think they need him necessarily to beat Seattle. Brandon Ayuk, some of the other receivers with George Kittle should be enough through the air. Eli Mitchell has gotten 27 carries in consecutive games, so they're trusting him with a pretty good workload. And he should be in a spot that he can perform well against Seattle. And then just other guys will step up. The Seattle defense is so bad that I think other guys will be able to step up, and San Francisco's defense will be solid enough to stop a Russell Wilson that just doesn't look right. So I'm still comfortable. I'm still comfortable with it. And I'm looking through the playoff picture now, because honestly, I don't think I updated myself with the standings this week, and some of them are kind of surprising.
Yeah, I
San
didn't
Francisco
digest it.
is in one of the wild card spots.
That's right.
At 6-5. I think they would be the 6th seed.
And Minnesota would be the 7th.
Does Washington or Minnesota get 7? Because what I'm looking at now has Washington in 7, Minnesota in 8, but both at 5 and 6. And then 9 and 10 are also 5 and 6, Atlanta and New Orleans.
I mean, I have a soft spot for Minnesota. I just the way that their offense moves. Maybe I'm just a Adam Thielen stan, and I love Justin Jefferson, and just like the way that they move in comparison to watching Washington's offense play. Even though I casually like J.D. McKissick to score touchdowns, it seems like every week, but at the same time, yeah, just if you had to pick, I think I would probably go with Minnesota. But I feel like that's more fandom speaking than it is. Just a legitimate matchup based on the remaining schedule. I'd have to sit there and hammer it out. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting game here, 49ers Seahawks. We're going to move on to the next team now, Julian, and we'll talk more week 13 games here in a second. Team obviously a little special to my heart. Kind of felt like I had a little hanging fruit to bring them up on the show, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. To win the Super Bowl sitting at 13-1, Julian, Trayvon Diggs' Defensive Player of the Year candidacy may have taken a hit a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but he is still sitting at 6-1 to win the award. And Cowboys to win the NFC at plus 600. NFC East, I just threw that in as obligatory just to remind me that we still have a pretty good shot right now to win something, and that is the divisional odds sitting at minus 750 to cool my jaded heart after watching them just inexplicably suck again on Thanksgiving. So, Julian, before I get out of this self-pity mode here, of the 4, and whether or not it be NFC East, maybe you feel like you want to bet on that too. Is there a prop or a future odds here in front of you that you would be willing to put a unit on?
I don't know if I want to bet anything I'm looking at, to be honest.
It's okay, man. You're not obligated.
And that it's not necessarily anything bad about the Cowboys, but they've overachieved so far, even with the recent slip a little bit. You lost at Kansas City. Anybody's supposed to lose at Kansas City, so you didn't do anything wrong there. You did do something wrong on Thanksgiving, and that's lose at home to the Raiders, which is bad.
And then 3 weeks ago against the Broncos, which is just
well, that was bad too. So there's been some slippage. Washington is maybe a little bit more alive for the division than it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think this is necessarily one of the premier teams in the NFC. So I'm not going to back their futures. I'm not going to lay 750 on anything. So that leaves Defensive Player of the Year. And I think that Trayvon Diggs he's a great player. I just think he kind of stumbled into some interceptions earlier in the season. And we've seen recently that that's not something that you can carry on for the remainder of the season. So unless he keeps getting an interception every game, I don't think he's going to get it. And is the Dallas defense really a defense that you think of as deserving of the Defensive Player of the Year? I don't know. In my mind, it's not. And winning it as a member of the secondary is really hard. We saw Stephon Gilmore do it a couple years ago with the Patriots.
But they were also the number one defense in the league.
Yeah,
at the same time.
I do have a bet in the Defensive Player of the Year market, and we're both talking about our own teams, but I took Matt Judon at 40-1 after that Atlanta game, and he's now 8-1. So it's on its way. It's in the right place.
Right now the odds are listed. It's Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Trayvon Diggs, and then Judon now 4th after being middle of the pack, like pretty much the entire season.
Way down there.
And pretty much just been going up and up and up ever since that Atlanta game on primetime.
So Judon shot up. Garrett could get there, but he, the Browns defense hasn't been great. It's the sacks. Like if he gets to Michael Strahan's sack record, even with an additional game, then you got to give it to Garrett, and it's kind of end of discussion. But TJ Watt's been hurt. Now he's on the COVID list.
Mm-hmm.
He should probably drop down. So like maybe there's some value on Diggs. I just think that guys like Garrett and Judon have a better chance.
Absolutely. So again, I'm not really going to contend with anything you said. I'm pretty much right there. I'm the guy who's, even though I am a Cowboys fan, which may seem obnoxious to a lot, I'm probably more of the glass half empty Cowboys fan, more so than the one who's thinking that we're going to win it all every year, 16-0 season, mark it down right now, that kind of thing. Because again, I can't help it. Like my childhood, I had a great childhood. When I started watching football, my favorite team won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. Like it was just, I thought this was what was going to happen all the time. And I don't know if I would have said I'm going to be a lifetime Cowboys fan if I know that we were going to go on like a 30-year drought and everybody's just going to hate us in the process. So, but at the same time, it's okay. I still think I have optimism for this year. The Super Bowl odds is what kind of bugs me because I feel like that's like baked in like a public perception. Like that should be closer to probably like 18 to 20 to 1, in my opinion. Trayvon Diggs, 6 to 1 is okay for defensive player of the year based on what he's done, but those odds are almost indicating what he's going to do for the remainder of the year. And interceptions, like you said, I don't want to call them fluky, but you do kind of have to be in the right place, right time a lot of the time for it to happen. And the Cowboys defense isn't necessarily known for being in the right place in the right time. So I think that was kind of what shook people as well.
Both games still left against Washington. So that's kind of where it's make or break. Like we talk about the minus 750. So I guess if there's anything I want to bet for Dallas, just don't lay the minus 750 to win the division. Just bet them against Washington in one or both of those games because they need both of those games. If Washington gets both of those games, they're right in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I don't want to think about that scenario, but if that is the scenario that was going to happen, if I wanted to, I guess, hedge or emotionally hedge against myself of the Cowboys winning the division, that would be how I would do it.
There you go.
Straight needle to the throat. All right. Now, I want to talk about week 13 games because we just talked about 49ers Seahawks. I'm with you about the 49ers. I think they're actually probably my favorite bet of these 4 games I'm about to bring up to you. But I wanted to bring up the games that are kind of within 7 points because there's quite a few games right now that are big time teaser opportunities. They're all like 8 to 13 point spreads, and to try to justify taking money line underdogs in those ones, the conversation probably ends pretty quickly. But the games, specifically Washington was the game that I wanted to actually talk to you about, is going on the road to play the Raiders as plus 2.5 underdogs. And I wanted to know for that game, do you think that the Washington football team will have a shot or should just win this game outright and probably should actually be favored over the Raiders? I just want to kind of see what your thought process is on that spread and how that game will play out.
I don't know if they should necessarily be favored. It is saying, it should be 3 points, I guess, if these teams are even and the game is in Vegas, and it's under that. So I guess the line is kind of telling us that Washington is slightly the better team here. The Raiders are just so unpredictable. Like I don't know how to read the Raiders. I seem to find a way to dislike the Raiders every year, and I bet their win total under. I got it at 8 this year, and it went down to 7. I felt like I was in a good spot. A lot of moving parts. The whole offensive line was the strength of their team, and they like redid it with some rookies. I didn't account for the whole Gruden thing that went down in the middle of the year, and like here we are. They start 3-0. I'm like, well, I lost, and then they stumble back to 500, and then they beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. So whatever it feels like the Raiders are going to do, they generally do the opposite. So Washington's picking up a little bit of steam. The Raiders are coming off a big win and have a long week to prepare for this game at home. So, of course, they should lose, and I would go Washington if I'm betting this game.
Yeah, and the no Darren Waller, I think, is going to be a big issue for them
as well. Waller's out, that's huge.
Yeah, and I think with this game specifically, I think just – what's funny about the Raiders is that what you just kind of talked about with the win totals, that's been now, if you include this season, the way it's going, it'll be the 3rd consecutive year where they're starting like 6-2, 6-4, and just kind of looking like, all right, I think they kind of are starting to get their poop in a group here and we're getting ready. And then, and then we go off a cliff. But again, a little bit of revitalization against the Cowboys here. So I'm kind of with you as well. I'm liking Washington as an underdog here. Really thought they played fantastic last night. I thought even though Seattle kind of, I don't want to say did themselves any favors, I do feel like Washington at least deserved to win the game kind of thing. It wasn't necessarily Seattle just giving it to them. The other game I wanted to talk to you about is Chargers Bengals. I feel like that's a really nice high profile matchup for this weekend. Chargers +3 as road underdogs. Do you like the Bengals to cover the 3 here, or are you thinking the Chargers could maybe even pull off an outright win?
Yeah, this one I would go with the favorite. This would be Bengals or pass for me. I just trust the Bengals more right now, and they're at home. I think that Mixon should have a huge role in this game, and if they get a lead, if Cincy gets a lead, it'll be easier to keep it with that ground game going against the Chargers defense, run defense. Burrow's looked good. Jamar Chase is always capable of a big play. And, you just don't know what to expect from Herbert at this point, honestly, for me. And the defense is kind of in the same boat. So I just think there's more. I think there's more consistency from Cincy, even though I mean, the NFL, everybody's just all over the place. It's hard to say that you trust somebody. Neither of these teams are teams you trust, but I trust the Bengals more than the Chargers right now. So at home, I think I would be comfortable laying the field goal.
And that's okay. I probably wouldn't even play it just because it was either
I doubt
Chargers money line or no play. Like, just because I'm like, you know what? Because I don't know what I'm getting with the Chargers, even though I kind of know what I'm getting with the Bengals. Like, I would rather just take that money and be like, okay, I'm going to play props, because I know that the Chargers suck against both running backs and tight ends. So I'd immediately be thinking, okay, I'm going to bet CJ Uzma to get a touchdown. I'm also probably looking at Mixon to score 2. The Bengals actually defensively, outside of wide receiver, that like they've been pretty good against running backs and tight ends this year. Not exactly a big edge to want to take like Jared Cook, or, you're not really getting much value on Eckler anyway to score, but like just some of those props I would be a little hesitant to do. So that's why a lot of the time when I get to these kind of games and I really can't decide on a side, props just kind of open it up for me. And I'm sure you know that way too, because you're probably one of the people that I follow the most when it comes to props, because and not necessarily for like the plus money props. Like, you find some props that are like, and it's not like you're just like every other guy taking overs on everything. Like, you'll take an under and you'll live with it, kind of thing. Like, and I like that. Like, I think that's hard to find these days.
Yeah. And credit to you with the props, going after a lot of plus money stuff that I'm generally not as much about. Most of the stuff I play is going to be, even money to minus 120 in that range. So I don't take necessarily maybe as many risks as you do.
Well, you don't take as many L's as I do, is what I would say.
Well, but that's part of the bankroll building process that it's a whole nother story. But like, if you go 1-3, but hit something that's plus 400, well, now you're probably profitable depending on what kind of juice you're laying on the other stuff. So like, it depends how you want to look at it. Some people have a problem betting 3 things that are plus 400 and going 1 and 2 where there is no problem. You've made money. Whereas if I'm going to be profitable in props, you're probably going to need to see my record above 500 at the end of the season.
Which it has been. And that's one of the reasons why I follow you, man, because it's been awesome. And I think a lot of people, if they don't follow you already, follow him at Julian Edlow on Twitter. Because again, one of the things that I love too is you like to post like the splits and stuff like that. And like some of the stuff, I'm going to ask you a question about that here in a minute, but just like knowing where kind of the money is through the DraftKings Sportsbook of like, what are the most like bet props, like over and under, just where the money is going. I find, even though it's not necessarily something that I'll use as like a full judge of where I'm going to put my money, it is still, more information is never bad, in my opinion. I like to know more, and that type of stuff, that's a huge resource that you provide. So I wanted to thank you on behalf of all gamblers out there who like that kind of information.
Not a problem. All information provided by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm one of the people that they entrust with it, and once it gets to me, it is yours. It becomes public. So awesome. I put out what I receive from the team at DraftKings Sportsbook. For any of you listening, or you personally, like if there's any game or prop that you want, tweet me, DM me. I will try and get it. I can't promise you I'll get it or that I'll have the time to, but if I can, I'll try and help you out.
Yeah, man. And I think that's the one thing too. Like, I remember I was, I think I tweeted it, like, cause I was like big on Pat Connaughton props. Like, I was just trying to get like 3-point props for him and stuff like that.
He was good in the playoffs, making a lot of threes.
And it just started to get to a point where I was just tweeting at sportsbooks being like, please add this. Cause all I knew is that I kind of just had a good feeling what the Bucks were going to do and how he was going to shoot. So, all right, Julian, we're going to do a new segment now called Rapid Fire Q&A. All the segments beforehand, I always share with the guests. This is the stuff that I do not share. So I like to get some nice, genuine reaction here. And I'll promise you this one isn't too gross out. I'm not going to go too far and make you really uncomfortable. But we are going to change some gears, though, because we're not going to just always talk about NFL. I wanted to get your thoughts on NBA and even NCAA. We'll do that with these questions. So first question, we're going to start with a little bunny right off the hop. Julian, who you got winning the NBA title?
Ooh, the NBA the last couple of years, really ever since that one year that the Warriors were minus 200, minus 150 the whole year, and then Kevin Durant gets hurt and the Raptors upset them, and Klay Thompson gets hurt too, who we'll see for the first time since the summer of 2019 soon. ever since then, the NBA has had a ton of parity. And I know that the Lakers won the bubble title as one of the favorites, but that postseason was wild with the Nuggets coming back 3-1 to the Clippers. The whole East was wild. So like the NBA is now in a place where anybody can win. And then we get Bucks over Suns in the first year out of the bubble. So for me personally, I'm going to buy into the Warriors. I think the Warriors are back. You could have gotten them at a much better number before they started 18-2. But they still get Klay Thompson back. They still get James Wiseman back. I think that they are back. I think the Warriors are back, and there's still that plus 600 hanging there, which is better than, past days when we had to lay minus 150.
That's exactly what I was just about to say, is that even though you're not getting the best number, you're still getting a really good number, because you're not getting, it's rare to get an NBA team that is 18-2 with the MVP favorite, who's like plus 150 right now, who's still going to get an all NBA player, all NBA type shooter back, haven't even got their second overall pick back from this past year. And you could still get plus 600, plus 700. It just boggles my mind that they still have the Nets favored when clearly Kyrie.
And the Lakers are still up there in the odds because of the talent that they have, but they still haven't gotten it together.
No, and I don't think so with Russ either. So anyway, I can go make this much quicker, but if I don't stop, I'll just end up ranting about why I think the Lakers are trash anyway. So, all right, now Julian, question number 2: what feels better, doing a card pack opening or betting on Bonnie's basketball?
Oh, this is a very personalized question. I like it. I do like opening, basketball and football cards. It brings me back to my childhood. It's fun to get back to it and be collecting and stuff. Here's the problem. I don't get anything when I open any of these packs, and they cost a lot of money. So I just have awful luck. This is the randomization of things. You open these packs and it's going to be random. Some people have luck. Like my co-host of the Unreasonable Odds podcast, Steve Buchanan, he has great luck opening all these things. He got like a Fernando Tatis 1-of-1 super fractor autograph in one of these things. I get nothing. So as fun as that is, betting on St. Bonaventure basketball, who's been very, very good to me, won every bet except for their failure to come back on Saturday. I will stick with Bonnie's basketball here, and I expect them to win the A10. And you can still get them at a very, very good number to win the A10. That's one of my favorite bets. It is my single favorite bet in college basketball futures.
Absolutely. And that's why I brought it up, because every time I'm on the timeline, you're like, especially on Saturdays, like they're like, oh, here we go. Live play on the Bonnies. And it comes back and wins. And I'm just like, man, why didn't I jump on that? So yeah,
that was their last Saturday was the first time that they failed to cover the second half spread this season. They had been 5-0.
All right, sticking with national basketball. This is a 2-part true or false. First part, true or false, Gonzaga will win their first national championship in school history. And part 2, true or false, do you think it's still worth decent odds at plus 350 for them to win it all?
I'm going to say false and false. Can't bet them at plus 350 is the type of number you want to be betting. Like once we get to the Sweet 16 or something, and you've seen the bracket, they got through. Like I can't go plus 350 at any stage. I had the Zags plus 1,000 last year.
Same.
Great price. Had to hedge out because I really believed in that Baylor team, but I still would have won more had the Zags won. I was kind of mad at myself about that because I liked Baylor, but left myself more exposed to the Gonzaga side. Gonzaga's really good. Drew Timmy's really good. Chet Holmgren's a nice prospect, but they did lose serious perimeter play. Suggs, Kispert, and Joel Ayayi went early second round, I think it was. So 3 really good perimeter players. There's too much talent out there, I would say, across the landscape of college basketball that it's too difficult not to say just give me the field.
And I think that's the thing too. We saw what happened in that Duke game where it was kind of one of those things, especially when in the national championship against Baylor, is that if they get, I don't want to say they get out talented, but what happens is that if another team gets on a run and then they put up 3-6 points to come back, but then that team immediately comes back and drains a 3 and halts Gonzaga's momentum, they can't overcome it. And you saw that in the national championship, and you saw it especially against Duke, where Paulo Banchero was just basically every time they would hit a shot, he'd come down and transition and drop this 3 in front of them. And I was just like, wow, okay, Duke is not losing today. It's just, that's, if you're going to come down and hit shots like that. I'm not saying that Gonzaga maybe on a neutral floor again playing them that they couldn't beat them, but I'm just thinking that that's why I wouldn't bet them at plus 350, because some days it's just not your day. And the other teams will come down and they will just destroy you repeatedly with shots like that. So I'm with you, man. False and false. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
Put it this way, not that these two teams are on the same level, although a Bonnie's Final Four bet does intrigue me. Gonzaga is the anti-St. Bonaventure. St. Bonaventure can go down and knows how to battle back into a game. If Gonzaga doesn't start strong like they did against Duke, they clawed back a little bit, but still never got there. So like they couldn't come back against Baylor, obviously. So like once they get in that hole, they have a tougher time clawing back. Whereas when they start a game like UCLA, they run away with it. So Gonzaga is a hard team to live bet either way. Like they're either going to come out and blow doors and the spread's going to grow, and at that point you don't want to bet it, or they're going to go down, and at that point you have to say, I don't know if I can bet them live at a better number, because I don't know, they generally don't come back in these situations.
Yeah, you got to be strong. You have to just put the phone down and be like, I will not place this money line bet.
Yes, it's hard. I've lost money live betting the Zags when they have bad starts and just be like, come on, number one team, like this offense, and they struggle with it.
All right, next question, Julian. Mac Jones versus Trevor Lawrence. Which quarterback would you rather have for the Patriots over the next 5 years?
Wow. Mac Jones has done a great job. I still think that Trevor Lawrence is the better prospect. And the thing that we always lose sight of is like the situation. Mac Jones is in a great situation. He has all you could ask for is maybe more of a like a Gronk type of target for him. They have Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Hunter Henry's been decent. Or maybe more of the, Randy Moss wide receiver one, but although Kendrick Bourne has been good, Jacoby Myers has been good, but you got a good offensive line, you got the best coach of all time, you have a very strong defense. It's the perfect situation. Jacksonville's a mess. Urban Meyer's a mess. The team isn't good. There's a lack of talent. So if you switched Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones places, I don't think you'd be in that much different of a spot. But so I'll just go back to who, Trevor Lawrence graded out as a Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning type of prospect. So I love Mac Jones. I love what he's done. I have a 7-1 ticket on him for rookie of the year, and he's down to minus 300. It's looking good. But I'll take the talent. I think Trevor Lawrence would perform as well or better in the same situation.
See that as a Patriots fan, that's good to hear. At the same time, it's you're not so caught up in the Mac Jones juice that you can't, just at least acknowledge that there might be better quarterbacks out there in the rookie class.
So Trevor Lawrence is a more talented prospect. That said, maybe we did underestimate Mac Jones a little bit, myself included, in the draft process. The thought process of being, and this is true, his receivers at Alabama were better than they are at New England, with Waddle and Devonta Smith on the outside. And the guys that went to the draft the year before, and John Mechie, who's having a great year, was the wide receiver 3 last year, who's currently at Alabama. So the talent there was crazy, and he plays behind an all NFL offensive line. So I was like, maybe he's going to be worse in the NFL, but we just kind of overlooked the air yards, the type of yardage he was getting, the type of plays he was making with his arm. He was legit. He was a tough prospect to grade, and it turns out that, we were a little low on him.
2 questions left, Julian. If someone offered you free season tickets for life to the New England Patriots, but as part of the deal, you have to wear a Dolphins jersey to every game, would you take that?
No, but the Dolphins jersey has nothing to do with it. I don't know. I don't need to go to every Patriots game. Number one, I work on Sundays. I'm in studio, DraftKings HQ, downtown Boston. Watch the sweat from 12 to 1 p.m. We get you ready for NFL kickoff. Nice. So I can't go to a lot of Patriots games. Number two, if you're in the area, Patriots games are great. Gillette Stadium, it's in the middle of Providence in Boston. It's this one little highway that goes in. You're going to be sitting in the traffic. You're going to be outside in the stands. I liked going to games a lot more when I was younger. I'm much more of a red zone guy now, or just put a couple games up side by side on the dual screens. I put it this way. I would say yes. I would wear a Dolphins jersey once a year. If you give me your choice every year, we'll send you for free to a Patriots road game of your choice, but you got to wear a Dolphins jersey to the game. I'm in. I don't care about the laundry. I'll put my money on the Patriots. I care about my wallet, not my laundry. And I'll go to, I've been to the Patriots in New Orleans for a Saints game. That was an awesome weekend. Give me the fun dudes weekend road trip getaway every year.
All right. Now, final question, Julian. Can you please explain to everyone the joy of getting to appear on ESPN's Monday Night Countdown? The floor is yours.
Oh, God. All right. Touchy subject now. I did not appear on Monday Night Countdown, as I've been told to make clear. I was not on the broadcast. I was on a commercial that was part of the broadcast that ESPN leads
Still
us
on
into.
Still on it.
Yes. Very joyous. I got my play wrong on Cooper Kupp first touchdown. Tough one to set you up for. You got to pick the first touchdown score to correct,
which is
to
hard,
look smart.
Hard.
But I got a lot of texts from people that I haven't heard from in a long time that did the double take on ESPN on the TV and say, hey, I know that guy. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. And again, I wanted to, even if it's just a commercial, I don't even care. Like the fact that you were on during an ESPN broadcast, whether it be via commercial or whether it be on the actual broadcast, is still just kudos to your hard work. So keep that up, man. Now, before we go, Julian, can you tell the folks at home, I think you've already have, but I want you to reiterate it again, how people can find your work and what you've got going on right now?
For sure. So follow me on Twitter at Julian Edlow. Spell it like it sounds. You see my name right there. What do we have going on right now? Lots, because we're overlapped with basketball and NBA season. So like I said, we got the Sweat in studio for DraftKings. You can find that on Twitter, on Twitch. It's on all of Bali Sports Network stations if you have those. So we got that on Sundays. Thursday nights, we also have a show going on with Fox, I believe it is, a Thursday night football pregame show. So I'll be on that this Thursday, whatever that is, December 2nd. Unreasonable Odds podcast, of course, we got going on at DraftKings, myself and Steve Buchanan. We ran out of space in the Twitter handle, so at Unreasonable Odd, no S on the end. And yeah, articles always going on the DK Playbook. Plenty of plays out there on Twitter. Nothing you got to pay for. All available for free. All available to be bet on the DraftKings Sportsbook. And hopefully we're making some money.
Hell of a plug. Great job, Julian. Thank you again for joining me,
man.
All in. No, I'm happy you did, man, because I want people because you're a busy dude and you've got a lot of stuff going on. I think those people who may not know all the time of what all the different things you got going on. I think people need to know that stuff. So, Julian, again, I want to thank you again for joining the show. Make sure, again, to follow my content as well, all over at FTNBets.com. And you can catch me every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern on BetsTV for Touchdown Town, where I give out my best touchdown scores of the week. So I want to thank you again for watching Dog Day Afternoon. I'm Gilles Gallant with BetsTV. Bon chance.